Good evening, everybody. John O'Loughlin. I thought I'd introduce the Ospreys to you tonight. There they are. These are the vocalists from our vocal track. Um, the three Ospreys, along with their parents, make a nice quintet. And if you watch them, you might be able to see them actually do something. Looks like they're all looking out off into the water. Maybe there's something happening food wise that they're interested in. So those are the chicks, the three of them there. And let's see, there, that must be the parents calling, saying, "We'll be back soon. We have to catch some more fish." Anyway, how's everybody doing? Good? Hey, Corky, Robert. Hello, Garland.
Hey, John.
Hey, I think we're live on the air, Andy. Why don't you put us back in the green room for a second? There. Yeah, Garland just stepped in, so let's let him get settled and welcome him to the show after he steps into his studio. Okay, let's see. Andy, can you hear Garland? Yeah. Everybody ready? Okay. Andy, how you doing, man?
Doing great tonight, John.
Yeah, what you been up to?
Just been printing books and getting ready for my show tonight. Just have some, I guess, more news about the synthetic particle research and some of the players at hand. So just
And
looking.
that's at 10 o'clock tonight, guys. Andy's got a new show, and it's called Live with Andy. And what channel is it on, Andy?
It is actually called Live with Andy.
It's on Live with Andy channel on YouTube.
It's like people are telling me I need to change the name because it's hard to find. So there's a Live with Andy Cohen who has millions of followers, and it's tough to beat that. So
yeah.
But Garland Nixon, I believe we've all been looking forward to this interview once you announced it the other day, because it's been a while since he's been on the show, and he always had some great geopolitical insights, and I follow him on Twitter, and he's an intense Twitter follower, so I'm looking forward to what he has to say tonight. So I'm gonna head out of here and give the audience what they want.
Garland Nixon, hello.
Hey, I'm glad to be back talking with you.
Hey, so nice to have you back. Garland Nixon, Corky Goss, who you met at our charrette down there in June, says it was my honor to meet Garland at the MacDuff Memorial. He is truly an inspiring thinker, loaded with a charismatic spirit. Well, I couldn't say it better myself, and so it's just a joy to have you back. And I know that the prospects you were looking into when we last talked out in Los Angeles have panned out for you. So bring us up to date in your professional life before we get into any particular content tonight, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm very busy. You'll notice I don't have much of a background today because I'm turning my office into a studio and I'm planning on expanding my online presence. But I'm doing, of course, I do a show on Radio Sputnik, which comes on Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. But I do we record it during the day, so I'm not actually on that time. We record it like from 1 to 3:40. I'm doing a show on WPFW 89.3 FM, your Pacifica station in Washington D.C. every Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. And now I'm doing a show on KPFK in Los Angeles every Monday from 2 to 3 p.m. For as long as that, I enjoy it and I hope it lasts a long time. But, my brand can be a little over the top. For all I know, I might freak the people out in Los Angeles and they may say, we can't take any more of this guy. But I'm going to have fun. I mean, I hope I'm being facetious with that, but you never know.
Well, you've got what we like, and you're always welcome here at McDuff Lives, Garland. Thanks, and we're honored to have you back, and it's just fantastic. Okay. May I, if you don't mind, and you don't have to answer this, but we're all concerned about you as far as you had a pretty serious collision not too long after we last saw you. Can you let us know how you're doing?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot better. I had a very bad car accident. To sum it up, I was going through a light and just driving through a red light, coming home one night, and some guy
Wait a
came
minute, you're
through
driving through a what?
driving through a green light. So I
Thank
was
you.
driving through the light. My light was well, fortunately, my side was green, and the other guy thought his was green also. And a guy comes through the light about 60 miles an hour and slams into me, sends my car flying in the air up on the side. It was bad. It was really, a lot of people looked at the car and wondered how I came out of that alive. And both of our cars were turned to rubble, but I got out and, some injuries here and there I'm still dealing with, but I'm doing well. And I had a pretty bad concussion, but I don't have as much confusion as I as I used to have. I had a while there where this was funny. On Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I could never figure out which day it was. This went on for like months, but I'm doing much better. And so I know what day it is. That's a start.
Yeah, and well, it's wonderful that you've recovered as much as you have, and great. You must still have your brains because you're working real hard in your profession, and that's great too. Well, let's talk about some content. I watch you on Twitter, and one of the things that fascinates me, Garland, is the extent to which you and I seem to agree on things, but if you looked at my subscribers and your subscribers as groups, you would definitely see that these are like the Venn diagram is it comes together, but it's not that big. Nevertheless, what you and I agree upon, it seems to me like the most important stuff. So anyway, with that, what has been on your plate? What's the big issues for you today?
Well, if I might comment, and I think it's, those two subjects, I think, come together in that I think one of the things that I believe in very firmly is, the basic freedoms of people. I certainly believe that we are all a group and a community, and to exist, we have to live and act as a community and accept that. But I believe that within that community, that people should have basic freedoms as individuals too. And I think that's what happens now. One of the things that we're seeing now is the divergence between people who are simply compliant, who simply, whatever the people in power tell them to do, whatever narrative they're given by the people in power, that they will accept it and just say, yeah. And not only will they accept it, they will get angry at those of us who don't accept it, those of us who do push back and who do say, look, I do have some a level of respect for the individual. And I do believe that we as individuals have a right to our own mind and our own body and our own thoughts. And I think that's where it comes together now, that because those things to a large extent are under attack by some very nefarious entities out there. I believe that there was a time, and I'll, be as blunt as possible. I'm not, me, I tend to be that way. I've made this statement before. There was a time when I thought, yes, it's the Republicans, the GOP. They're the ones that one of these days they're going to go full fascist on us. Well, it appears to me that the Democratic Party has gone full as much as I got issues with the entire my entire view of the United States as an empire, that's running around the world trying to tell everybody what to do and ignoring the needs of the people in our own country. I think that's a big issue. But I mean, it seems to me that the leadership in the Democratic Party has, I just feel like they've gone in a fascist direction. And I think there's a lot of people that are independents or Republicans. I don't agree with Republicans and conservatives on a lot of things, and that's good. It's healthy for people to have some level of disagreement. But I find it interesting that the people who are pushing back against this kind of a fascist move, and some people who may agree with other types of fascist moves, but they're sure pushing back against the fascist moves that's going on by the leadership of the Democratic Party right now. I think we can agree there, and I think we have a lot of agreement there.
In trying to talk to my dear friends, who of course I was a liberal Democrat, like all of my friends were for probably 30, 40 years, and I just don't seem to have any common ground much anymore. I think they see different media from me, you know? I mean, the stuff that they get, like for instance, let's talk about the Colin Powell.
Mhm.
He is a figure who has been honored by generations now of people and looked at as a mentor, a role model, a hero, all of these positive things. Yet those of us that have looked beneath the veneer have seen a very dark side of Colin Powell that is not. I mean, granted, may he rest in peace, and may his sins be forgiven, and all of that stuff. But nevertheless, as an example of the way things are marketed differently to different people, and then covering up the deep state deeds of the past with these wonderful accolades in the headlines of a New York Times and other places.
Yeah, I agree with you. See, the thing about it is this, one of the things that I think you do, that I do, and I believe, and the people that tend to be aware of what's going on is, and this is shunned now. Shh, you're not supposed to do this. We actually do some research. We actually want to have more than a superficial understanding of politics or a politician. If you have a superficial view of Colin Powell, he looks good in a suit. He sounds good. He's got a crisp uniform, all of those things. He's got all of the right titles and all of that kind of stuff. That sounds good from a superficial perspective. But if you understand history, as an example, when the U.S. invaded Panama and kidnapped Manuel Noriega, I figured that he's not a great guy or whatever, but here's the bottom line. If you understand that history, perfect example, Colin Powell is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's in charge of this operation. And what happens? They go in there, and the reasoning was they were trying to do this thing with the Contras against the Sandinistas in Nicaragua and all of this stuff, right? The U.S. was behind that. Okay. And Manuel Noriega's like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. There's massacres going on, all kinds of terrible things that we're behind, right? It's shocking, right? So when Manuel Noriega will no longer go along with that, the U.S. then invades the country, kidnaps the leader of this country, whether you like him or not. International law doesn't give us a right to do that. A lot of people I know here believe in some level of international law and order. It's a rule. I got to go by the rules. Why don't you? Okay, here's what I'm getting at. They go in there and kidnap him. But one of the things that happened is truly evil, and it was only for the benefit of the military industrial complex. At the time, they went in and they bombed these areas. And these were poor people. They were, if you understand anything about Panama, they were brown and black people. They were 70% of the people in Panama, as in many of these countries, are, indigenous people, former slaves. These are poor brown and black people. They don't have anything. They didn't have guns. They didn't have any way of defending themselves. They didn't have any anti-aircraft, anything. They were no threat to anyone. So the U.S., instead of just going in and nabbing Noriega, which would have been illegal in itself, they bomb these areas and kill between 3,000 and 10,000 poor people in poor areas. Imagine just areas where people don't have much. I've been to those areas in South America. They're nice people. They're poor people. You might call them peasants. They don't have much. They don't mean anybody any harm. We go in and we bomb these people and we kill literally thousands of people, right? And it comes out later, the reason the US did it was because they were introducing the B-1B bomber. And they wanted to show the world its use and its effectiveness against Panama. Now, who is that to benefit? That was to benefit the military industrial complex so they could justify this 500, at that time, like $500 billion, which is an unthinkable amount, bomber. So it was about money. He was in charge of this operation. This was under him. And when you look at those kinds of things and you're like, we killed 10,000 poor, really peasants who did nothing. And it was done to show off military hardware for the military industrial complex. When I look at those things, so that's more than just a superficial understanding of a guy who looked good in a suit. That's saying that was evil on a Nazi level evil to me. When you're bombing poor people who can't even defend themselves in any way. It's unthinkable. And those are the kinds of things when you understand that Colin Powell was in charge of these operations and that Colin Powell didn't say to me, and people were like, well, he wasn't in charge. If somebody said to me, okay, Garland, here's the plan. We're going to show off this military hardware. We're going to bomb the poor area and kill 10,000 poor people. I'd say I resign. I wouldn't stand there and say, okay, well, hey, yes, sir, I'm a soldier. You told me to kill 10,000 poor people. I'm down with it. So, and that's just part of what he did. But that's an example of understanding the history and saying, that's not right. That's not moral. That's not something that I can, when you die, I can say you were some kind of a hero. You didn't fight some evil invader to protect us from somebody who was coming to assault America. You went to another country and killed a bunch of poor people like they were ants.
Yes, and I agree that it is an example of a Nazi mentality, and it's been, you know, my sad duty to read book after book after book of recent history, which if you scratch against the surface, you will see that Nazi mentality was not limited to Nazi Germany at all. And you know, a whole lot of it lived in Manhattan, and a whole lot of it lived in various places around the United States. And just because the war's over, that thinking didn't go away. That thinking is still there. And as I try to explore, I find it um, amazing, just totally amazing that, you know, it's like J. Edgar Hoover said, that there is a conspiracy so deep and so frightening that the American people, when they see it, they just can't believe it. It's just not possible to accept that.
I
But
think it was JFK, right?
well, Hoover said something like that too. But there, yeah, JFK, the Secret Society speech.
Yep.
You know what? For the record, I have it right here.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it.
And that's just a little snippet that I've kept handy. Secret stuff, secret societies, American evil empire is based in secrecy. You know, Skull and Bones is not called Skull and Bones because it's a bunch of nice guys. And the things that they do, you know, are, you know, they say, hey, sometimes some people got to die. I'm not saying they say that, but that's my summation of that mentality. They really, really want to push forward the technological progress to the extent that they don't mind cracking a few eggs to make their omelets, or even to make their messed up omelets that don't even work. And they're taking advantage of the good-hearted nature of the general public, not only of this country, but as you say, of the world, as guinea pigs, as people that can be pushed around and pushed out of the way, just to get at the resources or for whatever reason. This divide between us involves secret societies, as Kennedy warned us. Would you
We
agree?
Yes, and one of the things that people have to understand, be wary. One of the reasons that I'm against all of that I've been pushing back against the war on terror ever since the beginning. They were like, "Oh, we've got to go over there and do this against the Muslims or this group or that group," because I always knew whatever they did overseas would eventually come home. And when Biden got elected, Avril Haines and some other people were started that. Well, the war on terrorism over isn't there anymore. It's here. It's white nationalists. It's whatever, the Boogaloo Boys. It's whatever, a boogeyman that they could dream up to scare us with. And then they use that to bring home the things that they were doing over there. And so I think what people are starting to see and it's unfortunate that some people who supported this war on terror and supported the things we were doing in the Middle East, unfortunately, they're finding out the hard way what I think people like you and I already knew. That stuff's coming home soon, and it has come home now. They're putting together these domestic terrorism laws. You know what that's about? That's so they can do the same thing in the streets of America that they did in the streets of Kabul and in the streets of Mosul and in the streets of Damascus. That the same types of oppressive violence that they used against those people with no democracy, no protections for the people. They want to do that now. So they come up with a bunch of boogeymen, whatever boogeymen they need to come up with. And one by one, our rights are gone. And right now, the way I'm seeing things, there ain't much left. And I tell you, I don't believe at this point, I'm at a point, I don't believe we got anything even approaching a democracy. So much so that when people say, me, I'm an independent. I don't like either party. I don't like any of the candidates. I've just had it with all of them, right? And I think there's a lot of people that respect that. There are people that like one candidate or another, but there's a lot of people that understand people like me who have had it up to here. Okay. And then when people say, do you think Trump can win in 2024? I'm at a point. I don't think anybody other than the approved candidate of the national security state has a chance at winning. It ain't even about Trump or whatever, or Biden or whoever they put forward. I just feel like we're at a point now where in so many ways they've taken over the media in a way that, for starters, they can color people's minds in a way to say this candidate's evil and this one's good. They track everything we do all the time. So if you or I were to run tomorrow and they thought we were going to win, they could look back through every text, every email, every message we sent. They could bring that out and they could change it if need be, adjust it if need be, change video now. They have the ability to make video that shows things that didn't even happen, artificial video. So if they didn't want one of us to win and we were running for president, they have things that they could do to ensure that we don't win and to put all kinds of stuff on the air to take us out. And, excuse me, if that didn't convince the people enough, well, you've got these voting machines. I'm a big believer that I think in a way Trump was right, but he was wrong. Here's what I mean. I think when I felt like this all along. I think when Donald Trump said, they stole some ballots here, they stole some ballots there. I don't think that was it. I believe it's those voting machines. That's where it's all at. Because ballots and things like that, people can find them and stuff. But we've got voting machines all over the place. That literally voting machines where someone comes in and votes, it tabulates, it counts the numbers, and you have no way that you could ever find out who actually voted. And to add that, I don't know if you're familiar with Tim Canova. He ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Tim Canova lost to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and he lost by the exact same percentage in every demographic. Whatever it was, let's say he lost by 1.64%. He lost by 1.64% in women and Black people and old and the odds against that are statistically impossible. In other words, the machines were programmed. Now go one further with Canova. Canova goes to court. And because in Florida, when you put the ballot in, right, the machine takes an image of the ballot and saves it. So you have a right later to go to court and petition the court to view all the images of the ballots to do a recount. Tim Canova does that. The court says, okay, Florida, you got to show him pictures of of all of the ballots so he can do a recount. And Florida says, we destroyed the images, which is a violation of federal law. Who was held accountable? Not one single person was held accountable. Nobody. People should have went to jail. That is a felony. Nothing happened. So you can vote. The machine either tabulates the numbers and you never see it and nobody can ever tell, or when there is images, if there's no paper ballot, they just get rid of the images. So in reality, to me, there's no hope of a democracy. This is a fascist state wherein they have wiped out democracy and our rights are being taken from us. And now they're creating this new class of people. And you know what class that is, who they're like in India, where they have a class called, I mean, it's a terrible thing, called the untouchables, where if somebody touches them, they must wash their hands 7 times. We're literally creating that class right here in America. And we've got a huge group of people who are clapping their hands. Yay! Down with these people. They must be dealt with immediately. It's horrifying where we are.
And to whom do you refer as these untouchables we're creating?
Well, I'll just say the word "un" starts off right. I ain't going to say it. I don't know what but the first 2 letters are UN, and we'll go from that. I think everybody can figure it out from there. And to go there, it's the whole, again, Kyrie Irving. You're familiar with that thing?
The basketball.
Yes. Here's a guy who, well, let me say this. He played last year and everything was fine. He played the whole season. His teammates didn't drop dead around him. Nothing happened. He played the entire year. They had a they had a excuse me. They had a last year, and he elected not to take it. And he played all year and nothing happened. Now this year, all of a sudden, if he plays, his whole team is they're all just going to drop dead and die. The science does not support that. And now he's some kind of a pariah. And here's the suspicious thing about that. He's not the only one in the league. There's a number of players who have made the same choice as he has, right? But see, here's the thing about him. He's well known. He's a big superstar. So they can use him to make a point, because he's so well known and he's a big superstar. And the others, they just kind of really don't say anything about it. In my opinion, the man is simply exercising his rights as a human being that we should all, as human beings, have under. Well, I could get into the Nuremberg rules and all that, but I'm sure you're familiar with all of that stuff. But to me, that's an example of the direction this country has gone, and it's a horrifying sight to look at in front of my face. I never thought I'd see the day that we'd be here.
The true reason why Kyrie Irving won't get the vaccine and lose over $200 million, here we'll let you know his reasoning. Well, I listened to his reasoning. I heard a clip of him, and I think he's a very intelligent man. And that's what we need to respect, is each other's basic right to make our own decisions. That and what you've just outlined is an example of where I feel we are now the last generation that can possibly save us from this totalitarian nightmare that's descending. I don't know how we can do it, but my goodness, you just said it. We've lost our democracy. As long as we let them have those Dominion voting machines. And, I agree, it depends on which state, which county's rules and all. But of course, the voting machines was a huge, huge problem. And Dr. Shiva up in Massachusetts did some great work on the voting machines problem. And I really think if he and others that have done the work had just been given the forum to talk about it, the American people would have agreed that, yeah, these results have definitely been manipulated with, and the Dominion voting machines especially. How can we get them back? Well, where do you start? Do you start at the local level? I think it's kind of, it's true that all politics really is local, but right now, where like you're familiar with where I live down here in Charles County, Maryland. It's run by the old style of government called the Board of Commissioners. We have 5 commissioners, and they're part time generally. It's not a very proactive uh, um, situation where everybody is anticipating what could happen. And as a result, the stuff that's going on in Baltimore or Annapolis or even Prince George's County has a huge effect on what happens down here. We don't have a big voice, is what I'm saying. And what, as a citizen in a smaller county like this, it seems to me that the only thing that I could hope to do would be to promote the idea of trying to be self-sufficient, of trying to not have to have, those trucks that come from, across the country full of food products if we didn't need them. I, it's an agricultural area where we could be growing tons and tons of food if it made economic sense. Right now, we're not. And I think generally around the country, people have got to try to be more local about their power structure. Because what can you do right now if you don't have control over your food supply? You're a complete, in 3 days you're dead. You know, if they don't feed you, so you'll come crawling to Henry Kissinger and say, "Yes, Dr. Kissinger, I want your manna. Please give me some." You know, uh, they've got this planned out, and we have to do something. So a local solution is my suggestion. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think those are the types of things that we can do. I think growing your own food and doing what you can to be self-sufficient is something that will help. That will at least take some of the power away from big agriculture, et cetera. These big agricultural companies who God only knows what a lot of the stuff that they're giving to us, it isn't food. It's a product. It's not designed for nutrition. It's not designed to go in your body and make you healthy. It is designed to make a profit, and you don't even know what the heck you're getting in some beautiful, bright, shiny colored box, or even, whether the fruits and vegetables that you're getting, whether they're decent to eat or not. Everything is a product. So I agree with you. We have to do what we can. We have to take things into our own hands because our government has been captured by really this corporate / deep state oligarchy. I think that, the funny thing about it is, I use the word funny, that the people who are the so-called crazy conspiracy theorists, right? Oh, they're nuts. They don't know anything. They're out in space. They're the flat earthers. But if you look now at the people who were in the 1990s saying, New World Order, one world government, beware of that. They were on the money. They might have missed some things, granted. Don't get me wrong. But in a large way, if you look at what happened, a perfect example. Christopher Steele, I don't know if you know, the guy with the Steele dossier, got interviewed by Stephanopoulos for that farcical document that was paid for by the Clinton campaigns that the FBI helped that fraud that they helped to perpetrate called Russiagate. He was on TV, basically George Stephanopoulos was given in this puff piece saying it was great after it's all been debunked. But here's the thing to think about. To me, there's a perfect example of this whole one world government, that whole Russiagate farce, right? I won't call it a hoax because a hoax sounds benign. Hoax almost sounds like a play. This was something that was at its very core extremely evil. Think about this. He is MI6, so that's the Brits, right? So we know that the CIA, the FBI, the US intelligence was involved. We know that Christopher Steele and the Brits, that their intelligence was involved. We know there's a guy named Joseph Mifsud who was involved with Italian intelligence. We know they were involved. Australian intelligence, the guy named Alexander Downer, right? We know he was involved. What we're talking about now is a whole bunch of countries all of them involved in a preemptive coup to ensure that someone that they didn't want to win the US presidency didn't win. I wasn't a Trump fan. I didn't like either one of them. I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Hillary. I didn't vote for Biden. I didn't vote for any of them. There's nobody there for me now. But that being said, you have a right to democracy, and people vote, and whoever wins wins. That's the way I believe it, whether I like them or not. Democracy to me is about being willing to lose. Democracy to me is about saying, I'm going to put my candidate forth. I'm going to put my platform forth. I'm going to put it out to the American people. Let them choose. They vote, and whoever wins wins. And if my beliefs win, that's great. If they don't, then I have to, get myself back together in another 4 years and try to win it again. That's democracy. That's fair, right? What we saw was intelligence agencies, all of these countries that we know of for sure. It was the U.S., it was England, it was Italy, it was Australia. So we know there was more involved. But that being said, they worked for a preemptive coup because they see the United States as just one block in a bigger, broader government. They don't see themselves as separate intelligence agencies, the Five Eyes and all that stuff. They see themselves as one intelligence agency, protecting an ideology, protecting this neoliberal, globalist, neoconservative ideology. And that's what they're doing. And they all work together to do it. Well, if they're from different countries and they're all working together, then in reality, are they really from different countries? We may see the boundaries. They don't see the boundaries. They see one country and one of these blocks in our world government may have somebody that we don't want to win. We've all got to come together and act together to stop them. And do you think they're not going to do the same thing in 2020? Anybody who thinks they ain't going to do the same thing in 2024 is naive.
We just have to keep talking about it, because if we let it happen, we're, who's at fault, really? I mean, it was obvious the last time.
Yep.
And it'll be obvious the next time. As long as we have a shred of free press, we'll keep talking about it, because it is probably the greatest barrier to the success of the American dream, that we can't have free and fair elections. That's just the guts, tearing the guts out of our American system. And you're absolutely right. Yeah.
If I may say, I agree with you in that, as frustrated as I am, as angry as I am, as hopeless as it seems, I do agree. You have to keep fighting, because that's all you got. You have to keep pushing back. You have to keep fighting. You don't know if you're making headway or not, but you never just give it, because that's what they want us to do. They want us to be fatalist and just say, okay, it's like the Borg, resistance is futile. And I agree with you. As angry and fatalist as I can get at time and say, oh, there's nothing we can do. I mean, because that's going to happen. You're going to get frustrated when you see these things. But I agree with you. I think what we're doing is one of the things that's good. I think, and that is what you do and what I try to do, and that is continually to give people an alternative perspective, to give and to point out to people, look, you're being lied to by these people. They don't care about you. The lies that they'll say something about a country and they'll say, yeah, and we're trying to work out peace. You don't have 800 bases around the world because you're trying to work towards peace. Those two things don't go together. And what Americans, I've been against war and against this huge empire thing for a long time. But I think what even people who have been supporting it, who would hear like, oh, this country is evil, and they go, yeah, America, we got to go after that country. And of course, the CIA comes up with another one. That guy over there is an evil dictator. Oh my gosh, yes. That guy over there. And then Hollywood joins in and says, and makes, did you see I don't know if you know, the remake of Red Dawn, 2012, the remake of Red Dawn in 2012. And everybody, you ain't going to believe this. A country the size of Pennsylvania, which is North Korea, which has 15 million fewer people than California, North Korea. In Red Dawn, the remake in 2012, Hollywood would have us to believe that the U.S. was invaded by North Korea. A country that doesn't even have a navy that could get over here, that doesn't have airplanes that could bring people over here. We're supposed to believe North Korea is coming over to invade us, and we had to protect ourselves from the invasions. Why is that? Because the military industrial complex can say, this country over here, they're out to get us. Therefore, we have to build more nukes, build more this, build more that. And when you watch Red Dawn, oh my gosh, look at that. That's the North Koreans are invading us. We better build some more $14 billion ships. We don't need to fix our infrastructure. When your lights go out, you won't say, why are my lights going out? Our infrastructure is screwed up. You know what I mean? Because you'll be like, well, but we've got to protect ourselves from North Korea. I understand. Our country is rotting. It's falling apart. And we got to build, and we're building a new bases in Indonesia at a time when money, you know what they should do? Build more ports, pay more longshoremen and people to unload stuff, do things like that. Build more chips. But I might add that I'm getting along, but I just something, when I said chips, I got to say something. As an example, and I know I'm running on, but this I don't want to miss because I've been researching this. If you search online for World Economic Forum used cars, you will find the World Economic Forum has this document about the future of used cars. And in that document, they say they want to get rid of 90% of all cars, and that the plan is only 10% of the cars we have now, they will be on autonomous cars. And basically a car will take you somewhere, drop you off. Then that car will go off on its own and like Uber as a taxi all day to make money. And then the end of the day, it'll come pick you up. But if you think about it, that means, you know, well, how can you get away without cars? Well, that means everybody works from home. That means you don't have stores anymore. You buy everything online. You don't go to see your friends anymore. Everything is social media. And of course, they're going to control the social media and control your social life. But I ask people this, getting kind of hard to find used cars, isn't it? And they're giving us this lie they can't find chips. We look at that and see they want to get rid of 90% of, that's it, the Circular Cars Initiative. They want to get rid of all of 90% of the cars. And they said what they want to do with this other only 10% of the cars they have is those cars there's no used cars. Those cars will be used. When they come to the end of their life, that car goes back to the factory, it's ground up, and it's recycled into a new car, and back out it goes. But there's no used cars. And right now, they're telling us there's no used cars and there's no new cars because of the chips. And I would have to suspect that the Circular Cars Initiative is involved.
That's the first I've heard of that, but it sounds like what they're doing. They're just, and the things that you described, that the lifestyle that you described is exactly what has been imposed upon us, is it not? I mean, due to the unspeakable medical condition that we've been supposedly suffering with, the lockdowns, everything else. I was thinking about Australia and how, gosh, how badly they needed a nuclear submarine, and thank God somebody rose to the occasion to supply them with this badly needed instrument of war. Because you know, they have you know, so many enemies, you know, chomping at the bit to attack Australia. No, what was that all about?
Well, I'll say this, a couple of things. Number one, if you look at it, those subs aren't supposed to be delivered till like what, 2040? So in reality, I think it was kind of a fraud. I think it was a fake. I think maybe one thing they wanted to get out from under that French contract, it's really, what was it? It's like everything else, follow the money. The French had a contract for $90 billion. That's gone. Now the Americans have a contract with so many billions of dollars. In reality, what was it about? Who wins? Cui bono, right? The military industrial complex. Additionally, I do believe that the U.S. wants to create a new empire, an empire. If you think about this, the US, the UK, and Australia, okay, and who have they cast aside? If you think about this, the Germans had a Nord Stream 2, had a gas pipeline with the Russians. And what was that about? The Germans were like, we want to do that because we can get cheap gas. It was an economic decision. hey, we can get cheap gas through this pipeline cheaper than anywhere else. We want to do that. If a country decides to make a smart economic decision, I think a country has a right to do that, right? The US pushed back and fought that. Now France with the submarines. So what do? France, Germany, they don't speak English. They're non-English speaking. You now create a new empire that's English speaking only empire. It's the US, it's the UK, it's Australian. It's this new empire that's coming up. And that's kind of the way it feels to me. Like they're building the new British, like the new British Empire is taking over. And the British Empire, they didn't like anybody. They didn't like the Irish, the French, they hate the French, the Germans, etc. You know what I mean? So it's interesting to look at it from that perspective, of who's coming together, and France and Germany are just cast aside, like, yeah, you guys, you don't speak English anyway, and you get the hell out of here. We got our own empire now. And the US is at the lead, and the other two are willing to be their puppies. And I think that's a big part of what it was about.
The things you're saying here are very resonant with a lot of what I hear from our friends at the LaRouche organization. I'll be talking to Harley Schlanger tomorrow, the great economic historian, and he is, and all of their organization is with you completely in looking into the British hand behind a lot of this. And what you say as American empire, I think I would suggest that the American empire only exists on paper, in that we are so far in debt that it's like it. If I knew a lawyer that used to use the expression, "Oh, I gave it to him on a string." You know, in other words, I let him have the title, but anytime I want to, I can yank it back. I feel like we're in that type of a position because of the incredible hold that the banks have over our economy. And where does that come from? I think that of course is where a lot of this mystery is solved by following the money, just as you say. The Bank of International Settlements is a big mystery that sits in Switzerland, and but that's where all of the money gets laundered. The big money gets laundered there. Nicaragua,
Cayman
Florida,
Islands, the Isle of Man, Jersey, those kind of places, Cyprus.
yeah, and in the Caribbean, of course, is famous for that, with all the connections through Florida. And Florida, just, I mean, Miami, my God, it went corrupt immediately because the CIA made it happen. That's what this is. This is the thing that I can't. I mean, if people understood that the CIA has been destroying American communities, American cities, American life for 50, 60, 70 years, if people understood that, then maybe we'd have a chance to move forward. Because, it's just like, Kennedy said, the CIA, if I would break it into 1,000 pieces and cast it to the wind.
When you talk about money, here's what's interesting with the lockdowns, right? There's been economic arguments made that I don't know how much, let me just say it, that COVID, in a way, in an ironic way, saved the markets. Let me tell you what I mean. In October, before all of this happened, right? This started in March with the lockdowns. In October, if you remember, September, October, the repo market crashed. And the US had to give $120 billion a month into the repo market in order to, so at one point it was like 100 billion a week. This insane amount of money that they were pumping into the repo market, that the Fed was pumping into the repo market to
Remind me,
prop.
what is repo market?
That it's very complicated and I don't understand it that well, but it has to do with how the banks borrow money and how money, it's like the infrastructure of the stock market. You know what I mean? How money is borrowed and how it goes out. The bottom line is this, from my understanding, is when the repo market's in trouble, it's just like a foundational part of how money is borrowed and lent in the market.
Mhm.
So at any rate, the US, the Fed was pumping all of this money into the market to stop this thing from falling apart, right? And the people at the top, Citibank, these other people were saying this thing's getting ready to fall. Well, all of a sudden, what happened? And I think it's conspicuous. There were the lockdowns. It's like, oh, we got a lockdown. And the first thing they did, and I always wondered about this, the first thing they did with a lockout, right? There we go. The first thing they did, and look at the date, September 30th, 2021. We didn't we didn't lock down till what is it, October, November, December, January, February, March. 6 months later, we locked down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when the first thing they did was called the CARES Act, which pumped somewhere between $5 and $7 trillion into these corporations. And everybody was like, what are they doing that for? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever, does it? Made no sense at all. The CARES Act gave all of these money. What they were doing is it was this big bailout because everything was about to crash. Now, think about this. If they put all of that money into pump all of this money out, $7 out, some of it is going to leak into the hands of people. It's going to go into the economy, and it's going to overheat the economy, and you're going to have bad inflation unless you turn the economy off, unless you turn the switch and shut the economy off so that it can't leak out through the hands of people. So an argument can be made that they put all this money out, you shut the economy down and you turn it off, and that's the only way that you can get all of this money out there without getting massive inflation instantly. And that's kind of what the lockouts were about. It was shutting the economy off so they could throw all of this money into the market and save the market, and the money wouldn't leak out and overheat the economy. If you think about it, inflation is what? Your economy gets overheated, right? But it can't overheat if you turn the switch off, can you? So they turn the switch off on the economy. They pump money into the market, the feds, they pump money to the billionaires, and they don't have to worry about the market overheating because nobody's out there working. Nobody's out there doing anything. So an argument can be made that the whole thing was about to crash, and the COVID and the lockdowns, serendipitously, you can argue, I don't know what the case may be. I'm not going any further than that, just to say that saved a humongous crash. But then if you look at it, did it really save it? Because look what's going on now. They had to start it back up sooner or later. And what happened when they started it up? The inflation starts to fire up. Let me ask you this. Okay, all of these things, there's a demand for all of these things to be bought, right? So if they all come in and they're delivered, people will start buying. And the economy will overheat again, won't it? So you got to hold this stuff back. If these ports are all full of things that people want to buy, what happens if the ports suddenly push all of this stuff on the market and people start buying it all? And the economy goes, especially when people are starving to buy all of these things. People want cars, people want this, that. You flood the market with that stuff, people buy it all, the economy overheats again. So you have to hold that stuff back instead of letting it get into the market so people can all buy it and overheat the market again. I'm not saying all this stuff is intentional, but there is certainly enough evidence that one could have those suspicions.
I think it's brilliant. I love it. I think you really got a great analysis there. Why else are they not letting those ships come in? It's a fascinating argument. I like it. I was thinking just going back before into the well, well, to tell you the truth, I just lost my thought. But
Well, let me say this. If you think about it, one of the things that they push all the time, you remember when the Iraq War happened, after the 9/11 attack, what did Bush say? Go out and buy things. Go
yeah,
out and consume, buy things. That'll help the economy.
right.
Isn't it interesting that right now we're not hearing the normal go out and buy, go out and consume? People are saving their money. Are they saying, oh, no, don't save your money, you got to spend it? No, they're not. In fact, they're not even putting the products on the market so that we can buy them and consume. Like, I had a car accident, had a nice car. I wanted to go out and buy another car, but I can't do it because they're not available. The types I want aren't available. I look at used cars, they're too high. So I can't even buy what I want to buy. And there are a lot of people right now. I have a friend of mine, his boat motor went up. I got a boat. I love my boat. My buddy's boat motor went up. He checked with Mercruiser. A year. They want him to pay for it now and wait a year. I don't believe that these things are as backed up as they say they are. Look, if you look at these maps, there's ships all around here waiting to be unloaded, right? I think it is a deliberate move because if, as I said, if you just think about it, if they unload all of this stuff and load up the shelves, people are starving to buy things, and a lot of people have money. People will go buy this stuff, and the economy will go on fire. And then you'll get inflation and you'll get all kinds of problems that they don't want. I think it's deliberate. I may be wrong, but it makes enough sense to me. They don't want to get this. And with inflation, they're scared. So they pump unthinkable amounts of money, and they're still pumping $120 billion a month into the Fed. They have printed more money in the last 24 months than they did in 100 years before then. 2/3 of all money that has ever been printed has been printed. I mean, I say printed, I mean, a lot of it, they just put zeros on a computer. 2/3 of all the money in the United States that's ever been created has been created in the last 24 months. Can they fill the market with stuff and allow people printing all that money and allow people to go on a buying spree and start buying like hell and heat the economy up? Absolutely not. I just think they're holding back this stuff. And the idea that the supply chain is broken, I don't believe that that's true. And also, Biden's running out there. Hey, if everybody just gets Biden literally said, if everybody gets the jab, the supply chain will be fixed. It's like that's the cheese in the trap. If you just do what I want, then you'll get whatever it is you want. You get none of it. So what do you think about my theories with this supply chain stuff?
Yeah, I'm with you. I was just looking at the chat room. Here's a maybe a point to consider. David Underdown says low rates and rising inflation is not a recipe for savings.
Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah. It's not. But the thing about it is this: what to me the conspicuous thing is, and you've been around many years. I'm 60 years old. Have you ever seen a time when people wanted to buy things in America that they couldn't buy? When people were looking for things that they couldn't get. And we're told, wait a minute. One day, everything's moving fine, and the trucks are full. The trucking industry is moving, and everything's going, and things are being distributed fine. And the next day, all of a sudden, they say, "Oh, we can't unload the ships, and we can't move stuff with trucks." That doesn't make sense. That it just overnight, within a matter of a couple of weeks, all of a sudden, this happened. It doesn't seem to make sense. What precipitated that? It seems to be intentional, particularly when, as I said, when you think about what would happen if they flooded the market with these goods and people started buying goods.
Okay. Green New Deal.
Okay.
All right. Green New Deal coming up, what, in a week or two, this big climate thing and the COP something. They're going to try to seal the deal. Sealing that deal is gotten up to like $100 trillion deal, literally over for 30 years or something. But so they're getting people to actually invest, millions and billions of dollars in this idea that's called the Green New Deal. And what that is shutting down anything that is based upon burning carbon. Anything that creates CO2 is not going to get any financing anymore, and it's all going to be about green technology and windmills and sun and solar and all of that. Well, that is a repackaging of the debt, the great big debt that's out there that nobody seems to be able to extinguish. And what I'm thinking is that we're trying to get a bridge. Your idea is not a final solution, but it could bridge between now and when they seal that deal. And when they seal that deal, then they'll be able to relax and say, okay, well now we know that over the next 30 years, somehow we're not going to lose all our money, and we can relax and let the ships come in. But it goes back to the election. That's where I was trying to think of before, was that it goes back to Clinton and Trump. And Clinton losing was such a incredible surprise to the people that were invested in the Paris Accords. And the Paris Accords is a huge cash cow. I mean, the money that was going to flow from the Paris Accords is, that's Al Gore's dream, and there it was. And so then it vanished. When Trump went in and he said, "Well, I'm not going to do it," and then the Iran deal vanished, and that money was off the table, and so they had to come up with some more money because the system needs grease, right? So we need some more money, bring it in somehow. And Peter Strzok said it. There's we've got we've got
Insurance plan.
plan
Insurance
B.
plan. Yeah. They had an insurance plan.
Insurance policy. Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. I'm a person. Would I be thinking it would be a wonderful thing if we could find a way to create power off the sun, off whatever we could, and have renewable, free, reusable energy? I'm all for that. I think it's a great thing. But I just don't believe that's what these people are up to. To me, it's not a matter of what I think would be good or right. I think a lot of people, if you said, look, if we could put up windmills or whatever, and you never have to pay for electricity, and we don't have to burn anything and everything's free, most people would say, that sounds like a good idea to me. I'm all for that. And if I truly believed that was the plan, I'd say, good idea, let's go for it. But as you and I both know, what these people tell you they're planning to do is not A, what they're really planning to do, and B, in any way, shape, or form to work in our best interest. They're not trying to provide us clean and safe energy. That's not the plan, clean and inexpensive energy. They don't care if it's clean, dirty, or not, as long as it's expensive and they make a fortune. And I think when you look at this, what we're going towards is this. They're trying to get to a place where we have as little autonomy as possible. We have as little power as possible. We go, we stay home. We do what we're told, and we say, well, you can't move around because that'll burn too much energy. You can't have a car because that'll burn too much energy. Well, you know what? If you can create all of this electricity, then I'll have an electric car, and I can go more than I can have electric bicycles. I can do more than I can now. But that's not the plan. It is to lessen our power to less and less and less. And I think that the issue is, I don't care what kind of Green New Deals they call it, these people are up to no good. And ultimately, they ain't there to work something out for the best interest of everybody. It's, as you said, it's another money-making scam. And when you look inside of it, when you look at what they're doing now, I hear all these people, support, they're going to do good things. So what they'll do, like with these new budget deals, you look at, and there'll be some good things. There'll be some things that I'd like, child care for the poor. Yeah, that all sounds good. But within that, there's something called asset recycling. In the infrastructure bill, asset recycling. Well, what is asset recycling? Asset recycling now means you have a county water or sewage treatment plant or water plant that provides your sewage or water, whatever, right? What asset recycling means is they sell that off to Goldman Sachs. Now Goldman Sachs provides your water, takes care of your roads, whatever, right? And now instead of paying the county, let's say $30 a month, but Goldman Sachs gets it, they ain't charging the $30 a month. It's going to go up times 8 or 10. So asset recycling in the infrastructure bill supposedly is they sell off the infrastructure to the banks or corporations or whoever, right? They then take the money that they've sold it off and they use that to build new infrastructure. What do you think they're going to do with that? They're going to take the money. They're going to sell off your roads to Goldman Sachs. They're going to charge you. If you want to drive to town now, you got to pay a toll. You got to pay some kind of driving tax. Your electric car is going to register how far you've driven, where you drove, where you turned, where you didn't turn. And when you get back, it's going to rank up. Boom. You drove 25 miles. You owe us $17.22 for how far you drove because we handle the roads and you have to pay for your right to use, for the privilege of using the roads. So the infrastructure bill is once again taking our roads, taking our everything, turning it over to Goldman Sachs, turning it over to Citibank. They didn't charge us, and we will get to a point, and this is where I'm getting to. And people believe in this, but this is where I'm getting to. We'll get to the point where it's a UBI. What does that mean? Universal Basic Income.
Mhm.
right? And a lot of people are like, that's a good idea. Oh boy, we'll all get say 2,000 a month. In a way, it sounds good enough to me. Sounds great. Do I want 2,000 a month? It sounds good. But think about this. They put you in a position where you can barely make ends meet, and you get $2,000 a month. When you get that $2,000 a month, what do you have to do? You now have to pay Goldman Sachs for the use of their roads. You have to pay Chase Bank for your mortgage. You have to pay, you know what I mean? So what happens? They give you $2,000 and you pay out to you, and you owe 2001 to these same billionaires and credit card companies and banks. So they're not giving you money. They're filtering money through you to go right back to the same oligarchs. But look, they give you 2,000. You got your all of your bank is on auto pay. So 2,000 hits you. It goes to Exxon. It goes to Goldman Sachs. It goes to Citibank credit card. And so what do? You think you're getting money? They're literally the government is filtering money through you right back to the oligarchs, and you end up more in debt than you were in the first place. It's all a fraud.
It certainly is. But somehow or other, we have to get through it. Uh, we have to, and it's a joy to have your company on the journey, Garland. I'm so glad that you've been able to fit us in your very busy schedule, and I do appreciate it once again. And congratulations on your Los Angeles connection. And I know great things await in the future for you. So great work, and I will definitely want to get you back as soon as you're available. Will you come back?
I certainly will. Thank you. And here's the thing: what you're doing is that's what we can do, and that is you're getting on here and you're providing people with alternative perspectives. Then they get on CNN and Fox and MSNBC and the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Washington Examiner and all of these people. You're giving them a different idea, a different perspective, and you're telling people question this stuff. Don't just obey. Don't just comply. Question. Stand your ground. And that is what we can do. That's what you're doing. And I certainly appreciate it and all your hard work.
Okay. Well, thank you. Until next time, Garland Nixon, and thanks everyone in the chat. It's been a great evening for me. Thank you.